So what was it like growing up when you were young, the son of a professional athlete?
Well, my dad played pro football before he wrestled, so, we were exposed to that life. But once he started wrestling, we moved from territory to territory. We moved from a couple of different Texas territories, which were Corpus Christi territory, and then North Texas. Then we moved to Minnesota, and he worked in the Minneapolis territory. And then we moved to Indiana, then out into the East Coast a couple times, probably 3 different times we lived out there. But I think we went to like 14 or 15 different schools from the time I was in first grade to high school.
Did your dad kayfabe you on the business?
Yeah, he did pretty much. I mean, I went with him a couple times. Well, more than a couple times, but I went with him some. But he never let me in the dressing room, never around the other guys. I always just sat up in the bleachers and watched the matches. But it wasn't until I was probably out of college or during college that he was acting smart to me about the business.
Did you have problems with any kids in school ever with calling your dad fake or anything like that?
No, I never did, and never ran into that. But I guess it's just because he was just such a strong heel. He was just such a bad guy that nobody talked about him like that.
And you played football at West Texas State, is that right?
Yeah.
Were there any other wrestlers playing on the team at that time? Because I know it has a big alumni of wrestlers.
Manny Fernandez was there while I was there, and Kelly Kaniski. He was my roommate. So those two were there during that time.
Everyone knows Manny, but Kelly Kaniski, he had some WWE enhancement matches in the late 80s, I guess.
Yeah, and he was with Jim Crockett Promotions in the early 80s. He was, his father was Gene Kaniski, a former world NWA champion.
Now, when did you decide you were going to become a pro wrestler?
Well, it was while I was at West Texas State. I would say it was probably during my third semester at school, and I just started going to the towns and refereeing. So I was refereeing and hauling the rings, setting up chairs for the local promotion. So I mean, I was busy and I was gone all the time. I'd make it back for football practices and class, and then I'd be gone right away, back out on the road.
So that was the Funks promotion, I assume?
Yeah, it was at that time.
Was Terry wrestling by that point?
Terry wasn't wrestling there. Let's see. Dick Murdoch. Dick Murdoch was out there. J.J. Dillon. That's when I first met J.J. while I was in college. That was last of 78, early 79.
I guess you knew Dick Murdoch from your father. Did you ever experience any of the crazy stories that Dick's known for?
Well, I traveled with Dickie for a year while I was out there, and I was his constant companion. Dickie was a crazy man. He drank 2 cases of beer a night and drove 120 miles an hour in a pickup truck. He was something.
Now, who actually trained you to become a pro wrestler?
I started at the Sportatorium in Tampa, and Hero was there. Dusty was there. Every night, because I was working, so I was doing Broadway matches. 10 and 15, 20 and 30 minutes through every night. So I was also working with the prelim guys there too. So I mean, it was just it was an in-ring education that I got. But I had already refereed for a year, and I knew what was going on. I just wasn't physically able to at that point.
What led to you joining the Florida territory?
Well, the Briscoes were working in Charlotte, and they're the Charlotte territory, and there was a show in Greensboro, and I was with my dad, and we talked to them about me starting in Florida, and I started a week later after that show.
Was Kevin Sullivan booking at that time?
No, Kevin wasn't there then. Let's see, that was probably the last of 79, probably Christmas of 79. No, Kevin wasn't there for a few more years.
Is that where you first started teaming with Mike Rotundo?
Yep. I actually met Mike in Toronto in 1980 when I was up there doing a show. I was working with Stud as Blackjack Mulligan Jr. and Dick Byers brought Rotundo in the dressing room to introduce him to everybody. He was just breaking him in. He was just about to go to Germany, and I met him then.
So you were Blackjack Mulligan Jr. at one point. I didn't know that.
I was for Jim Crockett Promotions.
They were working with the Tunnies at one point, I guess.
Yep.
How did you like that gimmick?
Well, the way I got into it is that I was down in Florida, and I was riding with Manny Fernandez back from a double shot. We had done Jacksonville and Fort Lauderdale, and we had a wreck on the way back, and I had a pretty serious head injury. I was out for 2 weeks, so my old man came and got me and got all my stuff and took me to his house. I slept on the floor for 2 weeks straight, and I just woke up every now and then, I stayed there with him, and I was Blackjack Mulligan Jr.
Your dad was known as a really tough guy. Did you ever witness any of his outside of the ring battles?
Well, I've seen him in the ring go at Ole, but he and Ole just never got along for some reason. I don't know which one rubbed the other one the wrong way, but they didn't like each other. They had several battles, and I was there firsthand to see them. But it was mostly it was just my old man just roughing him up. He never really hurt him or anything.
Now, when Mike was in Florida with you, was that the time the Briscoes played the rib on him that he got caught on the fence? Or was that before you guys were together?
No, that happened to him up in Charlotte.
Oh, okay. What happened there exactly? Because I've heard a lot of different versions of that.
I've heard the story a few times, but I just know that he was out and it was late at night and he'd been drinking and he tried to get in the pool and he slipped on the fence.
Did you guys click right away as a tag team?
Yeah, I mean, when we met, that we just clicked. And then when he came to Florida, I remembered him, he remembered me, and we were friends automatically. Yeah, we've been good friends since the start.
How early into your friendship did he start dating your sister?
Probably about 2 years after he had been in Florida.
Did that concern you at all, knowing how wrestlers could be on the road?
No, because I knew Rotundo, and Rotundo was he's a real good stand-up guy. So I mean, he's a good guy. I trust him.
When you joined the WWE with him in 1984, what led to that? They just recruited you, or?
Well, we had left the Florida territory in '84. We had the show at the Orange Bowl, and Dusty was booking, and Dusty felt like that they gave him a short count. So basically the whole company just went to Jim Crockett Promotions. We just up and left Florida. I went to Jim Crockett Promotions and went right into it. But that first, I'd say the first 6 or 8 months, nobody was making any money. And I had made 3 weeks checks of $150 a week. And I had, like a nut, I just bought a new Corvette. So I drove the Corvette back to the dealership, and then I gave my notice. I started for Vince the next night. That was the first time we went.
Okay.
And I was there for a few months, and then Mike came.
Was it planned for him to come to be partners, or was he going to be a Signals originally?
Well, he and my sister were newly married, and we're really close friends. And I knew if I was making $150, he was making $100. So, I just wanted to keep him and my sister fed too. So we just shot it past Vince, and he said, yeah. So here came Mike.
Was it Vince that came up with the U.S. Express name?
I don't know who came up with that. It just, it just happened. But I'm sure it was him. It was probably Vince.
Hulk Hogan's music was originally your music first. Why did they switch it to Hulk?
Well, we had all been using music that was, we were using Born in the USA, and I think that the company had to start paying copyrights on everything. And I had been there for about 1.5 years or 2 years. And I left. Spivey went back in, so I think that they just took it off of me and Rotundo and gave it to Hogan, because it was, they didn't have to pay any copyright, and it was done by Jimmy.
Do you have any memories that stand out about the first WrestleMania?
Well, it was the first time I met The Rock. The Rock was, I think he was 13 years old. And me and Rotundo were the youngest guys in the dressing room, so he came down and hung out with us in our dressing room for a couple hours. And other than that, I just, as usual on any big show, you plan on doing 20 minutes, and you end up getting cut down from 20 to 15 to 10 to 7. I don't remember how long the match was, but it was cut down a whole lot from what it was supposed to be, so that was a condensed version.
The Iron Sheik went on in later years, once internet came out, to be known as like a really insane, mentally unstable individual. Was he always like that, or is...
He's always been that way, and I'm sure he still is.
Memories of your matches against Beefcake and Valentine?
It was easy work, and we did the thing here in Philadelphia to where I think it was their manager, Jimmy. Anyway, put the cigar out in my eye, but I just wasn't up for the idea of having to wear an eye patch for the rest of my career. So, I'm sure that Valentine is hot about that, because I left right at the beginning of the program, but it was just it was a different time in the business. We traveled every day. We would work in Spokane, Washington one night, and Miami the next night, so we'd have to do all our sleeping on the planes, and it was just a rough life.
What did you think of Brutus Beefcake's wrestling ability? Because there's a lot of different opinions on that.
Well, he's found a gimmick that he can live with, so that's fine. But his actual wrestling ability is, I wouldn't say it's up to par with mine or Mike, but he had a good partner, Valentine, that could lead him. Then, it worked out for them. They had a good run. But I don't think I ever worked a single with Eddie, so I don't know how he was as a single.
And you did an appearance with Roddy Piper on Piper's Pit. Did you know him at all outside of the ring?
Yeah, from back at Crockett Promotions. You know, he was good pals with my dad. He traveled with my dad, roomed with my dad on the road. But I didn't really ever get to know Piper, you know, because he was a little older than me, and he just ran in different crowds, I guess.
Did you have much interaction with Hulk Hogan during that WWE run?
You mean as far as
like backstage? Like was he with you in the same dressing room, or did he have his own dressing room?
No, we hardly ever saw him. You know, he was a big star. You know, he had his own dress room, his own planes, and yeah, he lived a life. We hardly ever saw him.
So, as you mentioned, I guess the whole reason you left was due to the eye patch, or was there more to it than that?
Well, I mean, it was just a work schedule. Mike and I had been 96 days straight, and we were in Baltimore, and we were playing car tag with a bunch of the other guys, and tail lights and headlights got knocked out of cars. So Rotundo he left. He left and said he was going home. So he left me there in Baltimore that night. And I guess he flew home, and we had to work in Boston the next night. So I went to Boston, and I told him that I quit. You know, Rotundo was at home, and I went home. And then Rotundo came right back the next day. so I was the heel. I had to stay. I stayed home.
I guess in those days there was no cell phones, so there wasn't much communication with you guys.
Yeah, it makes you wonder how you got by. You know, the way communication is now with texting and calling and everything, but we did it.
And you had an appearance for AWA at the Wrestle Rock Rumble. Do you have any memories of that big match? That was the big stadium show in '86.
Did we work with Kern?
Yeah, I think the Fabulous ones.
With Kern and Stan Lane. You know, I just remembered that it was in the stadium, and I remember, you know, the ring being set up in the middle of the stadium. Mike and I were just in and out of there, so you know, there wasn't a lot. We were in that day and out the next morning, so we weren't really there long either.
Is there any reason why you never worked full time for Vern? Because your dad was very successful in that territory.
I guess by the time that I guess Vince had pretty much taken over by '84, and there weren't many places to go, because I never went to Mid-South, you know, down there for Watts or for Vern, so I just missed it.
You came back to Crockett. You had a lot of matches against Ric Flair. What made you want to go to the singles route, or was that a Crockett decision?
Well, I had been in tags for years, and you know, I'd also worked singles some, and it was just time to make a go of it on my own.
How did you like working with Rick at that time?
Oh, it was always easy. I mean, it was a night off. You know, even if we did an hour, it was, you know, it was just a workout. Really, is all it was. It was. You know, we had phenomenal matches, good chemistry, and it just went well.
Did you ever, in those earlier days, have the chance to go out partying with him?
With Rick?
Yeah.
Oh, let's see. I'm sure when I was in high school that I was at Rick's house at a party. So, I mean, I've known Rick since I was 14 years old, so I've been around Rick a lot. So, Nothing he does surprises me.
And it's probably a good thing there was no cell phones in those days for some of his exploits.
I don't think we actually could have gotten away with some of the stuff that we did, because you just had to keep in too much touch with the way cell phones are now. Then you could disappear for a week and nobody would know.
And you ended up teaming with Ronnie Garvin. How did you like him?
Yeah, Ronnie was good. He was a good partner. He was well known. And let's see, we won the Mid-Atlantic tag straps I think we won them twice.
And wasn't it one of those times against the Midnight Express?
Yep.
How were they in the ring?
Well, working with Bobby Eaton is easy. And Bobby Eaton was one of the easiest guys ever to work with. Yeah, he could work with a broom. And Stan was easy too. Also, Dennis Condrey was really good too when he was one of the Midnight Express. So, all three of those guys were really good. And Cornette as a manager was, phenomenal.
And you had some matches against the Russians when it was Barry Darsow and Ivan Koloff. What did you think of those matches?
Well, I always liked working with Ivan. Ivan was, he's an icon, or he was an icon, and Barry is just a big raw bone rascal. So they were good matches. They were easy, and it was fun.
And you were paired with Lex Luger for some matches, and I guess he was pretty green in those days. Were you doing a lot of teaching when you were in the ring with him?
Yeah. Luger started out with me down in Florida. Let's see, it was 85 or 86. He was down in Florida, and he had just started. So yeah, that was part of my job, was teaching him in the ring.
Were you there that night in Florida where he had that incident in the ring with Brody where Luger left the match?
Yeah, it was a cage match, and what it was, Brody was just an intimidating guy, but he didn't do anything to Luger. He just wouldn't talk to him. so Luger left the ring.
Did Brody say anything when he came back to indicate that he was angry about something, or was it just?
No, he wondered where Luger went. He wondered what happened, but you had to know Brody, and that was just his personality. He probably didn't like Luger anyway. He was a pretty boy. So.
And some people over the years have said he had an arrogance about him backstage, but I'm guessing since you were one of the top guys, he probably didn't display that much.
With Luger?
Yeah.
Well, he was just that way. And that's just the way he was.
Did you ever work Brody yourself?
Yeah, I worked with him in Japan a bunch, with him and Stan, against me and Tennessee stud Ron Fuller in 1980 or 81. We were in the tag tournament, the Thanksgiving tag tournament. So I got educated to Brody and Hanson quickly.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure coming from Amarillo, you were familiar with that hard-hitting style.
Yeah, and with Brody being a West Texas boy and Stan being a West Texas boy, they took to me. They liked me, and I was Mulligan's kid, so they liked me. They took care of me on that tour, but they beat the hell out of Ron Fuller.
So you said you never worked for Mid-South, but did you ever have any interaction with Bill Watts in those years?
Just when he was booking at WCW.
Okay.
That was it.
Towards the late 80s, you ended up joining the WWF. What was it that led you to make that jump?
I had, it's when TBS had bought the company from Turner, and they were giving out contracts, and I was always a business guy, for Dusty and everybody, so I always waited last and didn't complain about payouts and shit like that. But just sometimes enough is enough, and they were giving out contracts, and I remember they gave the Road Warriors either $700,000 or $750,000 or $1 million a year, and I went in to see. I know what it was. I broke my wrist in Columbus, Georgia, and so I had a cast on my wrist, and I went in to see Jim Hurd, and he said I had a fake cast on my hand and that my hand wasn't hurt, so that was it. I just left, and then and he called me back about 6 or 8 months later and asked me to come back to work. But well, no, it was more than 6 months. It was about a year later. But I had gone to work for Vince as a widowmaker, and then my dad and my brother got into their legal trouble. So I just told Vince it'd be better if I stayed at home right now for a while.
The widowmaker, is that a gimmick that someone in WWE came up with for you?
I don't know if that was Vince's or I don't know whose it was.
It seemed like you had a pretty long undefeated streak there. I know you left on your own terms, but did they ever tell you what plans they had? Were you going to feud with Hogan, or it seemed like they were going to build you as a main event heel?
No, we never got into talking about anything. So it's just...
And when you were with the Four Horsemen, how did you like being part of that group? Because most people say that your incarnation of the Horsemen was the greatest pairing of the four.
Well, I'd like to think that it is. It was just because I worked with Arn and Tully and Rick so much. I knew how they worked and how they operated, and we had Luger and Sting and the Steiners and Dustin. I mean, we were loaded up on the babyface side, and I was, it was time to do something, to do a switch, and I talked to Dusty about it, and then we talked to Rick, and we made the decision. We did it in Jacksonville, Florida. Turned heel.
How did the fans take that? Because a lot of them still believed in those days, and you were such a strong babyface for all those years.
Well, and Jacksonville was a strong babyface town for me too. So it was just, it just gave it that much more shock value. Doing it in Florida and in Jacksonville, where I'd been for all those years. So it just helped it along. Anytime you can record a reaction on TV and show it to somebody else, it's just gonna amplify their reaction too, as far as heel turns or angles for wrestling. So it worked out really well.
How did you feel about the WWE choosing your group of the Four Horsemen to be the ones inducted into the Hall of Fame?
Well, I'm glad that we got inducted. I personally think it was the best unit of the Four Horsemen. I like to consider myself the best fourth horseman, and it just gelled. It was just something that worked, and it could have gone on for longer than it did. If things had stayed together, but it was, it had its time, and it was good when it happened.
Many people wonder why you were never given the world title around the late 80s time, early 90s. Do you know if there was ever any serious consideration of making you world champion?
Well, I had been asked, if I wanted to be champion, and I just wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to put in the workload that Rick did. But when it came, time for me to do it, is when Rick was headed to New York too. He was supposed to drop the belt to me, and he took it to New York. So that's another story.
So was there ever any hard feelings over that the title wasn't dropped? Because I guess he claimed that he said he was willing to drop it to you, but he ended up FedExing it back later on after legal.
Yeah, it was, it was just a contract negotiation for Rick, and he used it as a bargaining chip, and more power to him.
Is there any reason? I know you were in the match for the world title in the end, but is there any reason you were told why it wasn't given to you? Because I think it was put on Luger or something at that point. Wasn't it in Baltimore or somewhere like that?
Yeah, but with Flair gone, we were weak on the heel side again, and I was the babyface again. So, we just made a decision to put it on Luger. And, it was just a business decision.
Were you on the booking committee ever in the NWA or Crockett or WCW?
Yeah, at WCW and with Jim Crockett. When Dusty was booking, I helped.
Okay. What was your specialty? Were you more of a finish guy coming up with creative finishes, or were you a guy coming up with angles, or kind of all of the above?
Well, finishes aren't really too hard. You just kind of work with an end result and go backwards. But most of mine, were just creative ideas for guys and angles and stuff like that, mostly.
And you had a feud with Nikita Koloff. What was he like to work with?
It wasn't a work with Nikita. Everything was snug.
Yeah, because I guess he had very little to possibly no training when he was signed, right? Now, I interviewed Vader, and he claimed that he believed Nikita exaggerated the reason for his retirement due to injury to collect on Lloyd's of London policy. Did you ever see the injury that supposedly put Nikita out?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
I don't know that there were any Lloyd's of London policies left over at that point, so I don't know.
Yeah, apparently he was part of the Minnesota group that all got them at once.
Yeah, he must have had it for years.
Because he's one of the few that never came back. I don't think he wrestled at all after that. And memories of working with Dusty Rhodes.
Well, Dusty was, my best friend for years, and I met her, and we traveled together. It was just, and then finally getting to work with him, he sold for me. I didn't think that he would. I thought that it would be difficult to get him to work, but he worked, and he went, instead of his usual 6 or 7 minutes a night, he went 20 and sometimes 30 minutes with me a night, so it was good.
And some people over the years have had mixed things to say about him as booker. Some of the Four Horsemen, I guess, had some issues with him. What was your opinion overall of him as a booker?
Well, you just don't know that job until you do it, and it's a difficult job, and juggling all those personalities and trying to make everybody happy is it's not going to happen. So there's always going to be somebody that's negative about it. But I mean, he was a successful booker, and you can see all the shows that he booked, that are still running now. So.
And what do you think of his children as wrestlers, Dustin and Cody?
Well, Dustin and I were real close friends for years. I haven't seen Dustin in probably about 5 or 6 years now. I mean, Dustin and Cody they're just super talented in the ring and on the mic. So I mean, they got it from their old man. They're just super talented.
And how was working with Sting?
Well, early in his career, I was a babyface with him, so it was easy. It was just, I'm sure that it was a lot easier being a babyface with him than it was a heel working against him, because I had to try to direct him all the time in the ring too. But that was just, that was something that we did as the Horsemen, just ring generals, just trying to run the match and tried to get it to go the way we wanted it to.
And you had some matches with Bam Bam Bigelow. Did you like working against him?
Yeah, Bam Bam, he was a huge guy, and he would, he liked to bump, and he enjoyed the business, so they were always good matches with Bam Bam.
Some people, when he first went to WWE, were saying that he was a problem backstage. Did he ever display any of that to you?
Bam Bam?
Yeah.
No, never saw it. Not down there.
And eventually they put Sid with the Four Horsemen. What did you think of that idea?
Well, I mean, Sid was, he's such a big and impressive looking guy that, to be a horseman, you either had to be impressive or you had to have really great ring skills. And Sid, just fit in the impressive, because he wasn't exceptionally good on the mic, but he just looked so devastating. We worked around him when he was in there, so it was just par for the course for the rest of us.
Now, when I interviewed Sid, he mentioned that the thing you were part of at Halloween Havoc 1990, he said he didn't know the real ending of the match. Do you think he was bluffing on that, or
what was that now? What happened in '90?
That was the one where I guess you were dressed as Sting.
Oh.
And
in Chicago.
Yeah, he said he didn't realize anything was going to happen after that. But
well, I mean, we put together a finish for him and went through everything, but. It was just, we thought of it that morning. I had been off, I'd been home, and it was just a start back date for me, and we needed something for me to make an impact. So I went to the hair salon with Sting and dressed up as him, and we did that finish.
So as far as you were aware, Sid was aware of the full finish that night, not just the first half.
Yeah, he was. He might have forgotten it.
You had some matches with those were two pretty huge guys that were pretty tough. What were they like in the ring to work with?
Who's that?
Butch Reed and Ron Simmons.
Oh yeah, I mean, I guess, I like working with guys that work snug, so it was nothing for me, and Arn liked it too. So I mean, they were always good matches, and they were believable. And that's what we always worked for.
And Brian Pillman has gone on to be a pretty legendary character in the business. What was your feud with him like?
Well, it was when I was a heel, and we were just trying to to drum up some interest, and we shot the angle with Pillman, and it's when he was the yellow dog, right? Is that what you're talking about? Yeah, and I mean, it just it didn't feel the same to me as when we had done it in Florida, but I mean, it worked for him, and he worked. Pillman was a good worker in the ring too, so he was easy to work with, and you know, he could do anything you asked him to do.
Do you think if it wasn't for his accident, he would have gone on to be more of a star in the business?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It just, you know, it was just a dumb mistake.
I guess you were around for Magnum's accident too.
I was in Florida. It was after I had left New York, and I was working in Florida. And he and I both had Porsches, so when I was working for Vince, he came down to Florida, and I let him borrow one of my Porsches to go from Tampa to Fort Myers, and he had to have one after that, so he got it. You know, I always warned him. I said, you got to learn how to drive these cars. They drive different. You know, they're the rear-wheel drive 911s, and you know, it just bit him.
Now, you worked with Steve Austin in WCW. Obviously, he went on to be one of the biggest stars of all time in wrestling. Could you see it at all in those days, his potential?
Oh yeah. I mean, and Dusty and I talked about him too, and you know, Dusty put the TV title on him and had him work around with everybody, and you know, we knew he had potential. We just had to figure out what to do with it.
Did you ever go hunting with him or anything, since you're both into that?
With Austin?
Yeah.
No, never been hunting with him.
Did you ever spend any time with him outside of the ring, traveling or anything?
Not really.
Thoughts on Paul Heyman when he was in the Dangerous Alliance? He's gone on to have a lot of success since those days.
Well, I mean, Paul's a smart guy too, as far as the business goes. I mean, you know, he's run his own company, and he's still going strong. So, never had any problems with Paulie. Always just good things. You know, so he's a credit to the business.
And he manages Brock Lesnar now. What do you think about Brock Lesnar as a wrestler?
You know, he's the ultimate wrestler, and you know, I see the problems that Vince is having, you know, with him trying to beat him, or you know, because when you put the title on somebody like that, how do you get it off of him? So he's got him in three-way matches and all that, to where he doesn't have to drop the fall. But it just, to have somebody that strong, it's hard to work around too. So I mean, as far as the office and other talent, so you know, you just gotta know who's who.
What do you think about the situation with today's wrestling, where there's a lot of wrestlers that aren't really over as megastars, and then there's a lot of part-time stars that have big demands and special deals?
Well, I mean, you know, that means Rock and Lesnar, and you know, Hogan when he comes back. But I mean, it's good for business, but it's not necessarily good for the dressing room. You know, when you have guys doing that, because you have guys out there that are humping it every day and every night, going to all those towns, putting in all the time, and then you have big stars coming into the big shows and taking all the money. So it's just, I mean, you have to understand it's Vince's company and it's his money, so we work for him.
Yeah. Now, working with Ricky Steamboat and Shane Douglas, I'm going to guess that you enjoyed those matches.
Oh yeah, two easy guys to work with. Super easy.
And the Great Muto, how was that?
Well, I mean, you know, when he came back over to drop the title to me, it was just to drop the title. So I mean, I wished we could have had a better match, but you know, he just wasn't into it, and you know, I did what I could.
Did that help your popularity in Japan at all, winning the title from him, because it still meant something to the Japanese fans?
You know, I don't know, because I don't know that I went back over there after that very many times.
And you left WCW again around the time that Flair returned from WWE. Was that just a coincidence, or was there some heat there due to him not dropping the title to you before he left?
Let's see. That was what, 90?
He left, I think, in 91, and he came back around 93-ish, 94.
Oh, I had a knee injury. I had to have knee surgery. So
Okay.
I had my knee redone a couple times.
And then I guess you came back a year later to wrestle Flair.
Yeah, and I blew my knee out again right at the beginning of the match in Philadelphia. And we still went, I guess we went 30 minutes, but my knee was completely gone right at the beginning of the match. I had to have surgery again. Had to have completely reconstruction on my knee.
Is that what led to, I guess, you took some time off after that, a good amount of time? And was it WWE that contacted you during your time off for you to come back?
I went to WWE in 96, or the latter part of 95. I guess, you know, just because I had the knee injury and Bischoff and all them were still at WCW, I just, you know, I always flip-flop back and forth between the companies anyway. So I just, you know, gave Vince a call and went up there to see him, and he hired me.
Yeah, I forgot to ask you about Bischoff at that time. Were you happy when he took over WCW with some of the previous management there that had been not very qualified? Or?
Well, I was gone with knee injury when Bischoff took over, and then because I just came back for the one match and I destroyed my knee again, I was out, you know, probably 3 years total. So that was Bischoff's first 3 years. Then I went to New York in 96, and I was there till the end of 97, and then I came back to work for WCW.
So when you came back as the Stalker, is that a gimmick that you had in mind, or did they just say, we don't want to bring you back as Barry Windham?
Yeah, Vince just never did, you know, he never did want to utilize me as just me, and I don't know why. But, you know, the Stalker was his deal too, so it just didn't work.
Where did you record those vignettes? Because they're still out on the internet today, and people talk about them a lot.
Out on the property that I was married into the family. They had property in South Georgia.
Okay. Did you like the gimmick at all, or was it just a paycheck for you to do that one?
I didn't really like it, you know, the face paint and all that, but, you know, because
that's a pain to get on and off every match too, I assume.
Yeah.
And they ended up making you, actually, you feuded with Goldust as the Stalker, right? So you were friends with Dustin.
For a short time, yeah. And then we became the Blackjacks just real soon.
Was there any reason given to making you the new Blackjacks? They just wanted to try something different?
No, it was Vince's idea. And Bradshaw and I showed up to Chattanooga TV, and we walked in, and he says, "Where's your black hair?" I said, "What black hair?" He says, "You're my new Blackjacks." He says, "You're on TV tonight. You need to have black hair." So we had to go to the hair salon, get our hair dyed black, dyed our facial hair, mustaches, and we were on TV that night as Blackjacks.
What did your father think of that gimmick?
I never talked to him about it.
What did you think of JBL?
He is a really smart guy and really talented in the ring. I was really close to him there for those 2 years I was there. He's just John is just a great guy. He's a great friend to have.
Are you surprised at the success he ended up having, being a world champion later on?
No, because I knew Vince liked him too. So, if Vince likes somebody, you can tell, and he's usually with his guys that he likes. He's going to take care of them.
And in recent years, he's been a little bit controversial for various wrestlers claiming to be bullied. But is that just wrestlers nowadays being a different breed, not really being that tough and being babies, or do you think there's anything to that?
Well, John in the dressing room is a little abrasive, and to young guys and guys that are new to the business and haven't been around, I can see how he would intimidate them. But I know him differently, and I know he wouldn't hurt a fly, but he just has those ways about him. He can come off as a bully, but you just gotta know him.
Were you around during the time that he was in the Brawl for All?
No.
What did you think of that, just out of curiosity? It was an unusual thing to do.
Well, first of all, you're taking something that's a show and you're making it a shoot, with big guys in there, and it was just a poor idea, I think. Just sending guys in there to knock each other out just to see who could knock the other one out is all it was.
And of course, that's probably not good for the dressing room either.
No, it doesn't work for anybody.
Towards the end of your WWE run this time, they put you in an angle where you were with Jim Cornette as part of the NWA.
Yeah.
Was there ever any plans to take that further, or was that just kind of...
No, it was just a filler and a time killer, and it was strictly temporary.
What do you think of this? I don't. You probably don't even know about this, but they have the singer from the Smashing Pumpkins has bought the NWA name, and he's planning on trying to build up the NWA title again. Do you think that's kind of a lost cause at this point, or?
Well, I mean, the small, the independents and the small territories are making a comeback now. And there are guys that are able to make a living doing it, and Vince needs some competition. So I just hope the guy has the money to throw at it that he needs, because it's going to take a big pocketbook to compete with Vince.
Yeah, what would be your suggestion with all your years in the business to an up-and-coming promoter that wants to just be able to survive financially, I guess, in this day and age in wrestling?
Well, I mean, number one, you got to have TV, and you have to have a good, strong TV to where, that's where Vince is. He's on USA Now. So I don't know what channel they would get on, but you got to have and this is to be successful, you got to be on a strong TV, and it's got to be in a good time slot, and you got to have talent that knows how to work. And if you've got those, you can grind it out and you can make it work.
Do you think a more realistic product would be better? Do you think that the way WWE is going now with a lot of comedy type stuff and a lot of skits and stuff is the way of the future?
Well, the business, it goes in waves, and it'll come back around to being serious. more in-ring stuff instead of skits and stuff.
And when you went back to WCW, was that them recruiting you and you making a jump, or was that just your contract running out and you giving WCW a call?
In the end run, when I went back with Bischoff,
Yeah.
I had finished up, and I'd been with Vince, for 2 years or 2.5 years, and Scott Hall, I had talked to him on the phone, and Kevin Nash, I talked to both of them, and they said, call Bischoff. So I called him, and we just got the ball in motion to come back there.
So I guess you were friends with Hall and Nash from WWE?
Yeah. Scott Hall, I kind of halfway trained him down in Florida with Dan Spivey in the early 80s. And, I knew Kevin. So, we were just pals, and we were just looking out for each other.
Were you in WWF when Spivey had that altercation with Adrian Adonis that's now famous?
No, I wasn't there. I don't know anything about it.
Okay. Apparently Adonis tried to stiff him or something in the ring, and they went backstage and Spivey beat the hell out of him.
Adonis needed it.
So you were part of the West Texas Rednecks in WCW, which was actually a popular gimmick. I loved it. It was one of my favorite gimmicks in WCW. What did you think about that gimmick?
Well, we were originally supposed to be heels, and when we came out and, with Kurt singing, we automatically became baby faces, and, we were working with Master P and his crew, and Conan, and let's see, what's Ray? Anyway, we were working with all that crew, and no matter what we did, they came out being the heels, and they wanted to be the baby faces. So it's just, that's why we played on a few shows, and we didn't wrestle on a few shows. We just did like concerts, and it was definitely fun. It was fun to do, but it just worked opposite from what the company wanted.
Yeah, because you even came out with the second song. Do you think that could have actually become much bigger if they had just ran with it?
I'm sure if it had gotten more time, it would have, especially with the talent that was involved with me and Kurt, and Bobby Duncan was really good, and Kendall was good. So.
And I heard that Master P was making a ridiculously large amount of money, and his No Limit soldiers, who weren't even trained wrestlers, were making hundreds of thousands a year.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And we were working with them.
So you were probably making, I heard one of the No Limit soldiers was making like $400,000 a year, which is really sad actually, because I'm sure Kendall and Bobby Duncan weren't getting that.
Yeah, they weren't.
What was Curt Hennig like?
Well, Kurt was a really good friend of mine, and he just always joking, always smiling, always happy, and phenomenal in the ring. But he just had that monkey on his back. It just caught him.
And I guess they put Virgil, who was kind of out of place in the Rednecks. Was that just to make it seem like a non-racist group? Yeah. Definitely didn't fit in the group. What was he like? I'm guessing he didn't ride with you guys.
No, I don't know who he rode with. But, he just... he was there, and the company put him there, and we abided by it. And it wasn't. We were all friendly. We were all friends, but we felt it too that he just didn't fit in.
And like a guy like Virgil, to be honest, he's one of like a contract that WCW probably didn't even need, and they had so many guys like Lanny Poffo had the 3-year contract, and he didn't even wrestle once.
Yeah.
Do you think WCW might still be around if they didn't make mistakes like having way more wrestlers than they used under contract? Because I can't remember Virgil wrestling in WCW. Maybe he did, but he seemed to not talk or wrestle.
I think what happened in WCW is just you had let's see, I guess the prisoners were running the prison, so that was the way it is, and it just doesn't work that way. You got to have a boss, and he's got to have the say, and there's just no way around it. But there were just too many people in Bischoff's ear, and always guys trying to go over his head to upper management, with TBS, and it was just a constant jockeying game there. It went from being low key to the worst place to work.
And I guess there was lots of cliques backstage as well.
Yeah.
Lots of different factions. You had some matches against Chris Benoit. What did you think about him as a wrestler and what happened with him?
Well, I mean, in the ring, he was there. We were second to none. He was a great performer. He was partners with Dean Malenko, and Kurt and I swapped the titles back and forth with them a few times. But they were on their way out too. They were getting ready to leave to come to Vince.
Yeah, there was an unusual situation where the title was put on Benoit right before he left. Were you aware at all, like, on who orchestrated that booking decision?
No, I don't know who did that.
And you had some matches against Harlem Heat. How were they to work with in the ring?
I mean, I can't really remember anybody being difficult to work with, and those two guys, they were smooth and they were easy. There was nothing to it.
Now, did your contract run out after WCW went out of business, or were you released prior to that?
I didn't have a I guess my contract ran out before Vince bought it. So
Okay.
it ran out just before.
Were you surprised that Vince ended up buying it?
Well, there had been rumors for months, but for him to actually move on it and buy it, it was a surprise. But knowing Vince and the way he operates, it shouldn't be.
How did you like dealing with Vince Russo?
I didn't. He didn't like me and Bradshaw. With him being a New Jersey guy, he didn't like cowboys. He didn't like our accent, so he just didn't like us at all.
So it's transformed over to WCW too. But I guess in WCW you had guaranteed money, so it didn't matter as much as WWE.
Yeah, and I was out with injuries while he was the booker, so I basically missed him there too.
How did your brother like his time in WCW? Because I guess that was his most success.
Kendall just, he was a late mature, and now, he's an inch taller than I am and weighs 320 pounds. he's all muscled up. He just missed it. If he'd have been, if he'd have matured a little earlier, or if his career had gone on a little longer, he really would have made it. But I don't think he really liked being on the road away from home, and nobody really does. But
what's he doing with himself now?
he's got a couple different companies. He's doing all right for himself. He's doing all right.
And you eventually became, for a short period of time, a producer in WWE. How did that situation happen?
I was there for about 2 years. I had another old injury that needed fixing, my ankle, which had rolled over, and it was completely in a club foot. And when my old man was introduced into the Hall of Fame in '06, I saw Vince in Chicago, and he gave me a job, and he fixed my ankle. So I was there for 2 years as a producer, and then I just finished up. Travel was just too much.
So was that dealing with finishes and stuff on the road, house shows and stuff?
Yeah, and dealing with all the talent, take care of them, take care of the shows, reports back to the office, all that.
Who were some of the main talent you worked with when you were a producer?
I was in charge of the girls for the first year and a half that I was there. So I did the girls' finishes and set them up and did all that.
Did you work with Ric Flair's daughter, or was that before her time?
Yeah, that was before her.
What do you think about the popularity of girls wrestling nowadays? It's hitting an all-time high.
Well, I mean, with the way the business was headed, it was only natural for the girls to be involved, and now I'm glad that they're getting to actually have matches, instead of lingerie matches or hot dog matches or whatever. They're actually getting to work, and they're doing really good.
Was there any of the females you particularly liked working with?
Well, I mean, I got along with all of them, so it really wasn't any problems with any of them.
Was Natalia one of the ones you would have worked with?
Yeah, I worked with Natalia, and that was when she was just starting.
So would you work at the TV tapings with him too, or was it just the house shows?
At both, at TV shows and the house shows.
Is that something you would like to do more of in the future?
No, I'm done with that.
Yeah. So for fans that are interested, what are you doing with yourself nowadays?
I build old pickup trucks and motorcycles. Build custom trucks and motorcycles.
How many vehicles do you have personally now?
Well, I just moved to a new place, so I had to get rid of a bunch, but I've got 5 right now.
One of your two of your nephews are now in WWE, Bray Wyatt and Bo Dallas. What's your opinion of them as wrestlers? You must be pretty proud.
Windham, Bray is really doing well, and I mean he's so good on the mic, and Taylor just needs a chance. He's really talented, but to have him do that bow leave thing for so long was just brutal. Maybe they'll put them together eventually.
Yeah, some people have said that Bo might be better off leaving and going somewhere else for a while and coming back. Do you think something like that would be a good idea for him? Or?
Well, I think it's always good to leave and come back. It's just that there's such limited places to go right now, so he'd have to either go to Japan or our work on the independent circuit, and it takes a special kind of person to work all the time on the independent circuit, because you got to do all your own travel, and it's just it's an extra difficulty. I could see him going to Japan probably.
Did you have any part of the training of Bray or Bo?
No.
Is there any match of Bray's that stands out to you as one of your favorites?
I'm trying to think of, he's such a talented worker, but I can't think of any one match that sticks out in my mind.
With your beard the way it's going now, it looks like you're almost ready to join his group.
Yeah, I shaved it off this morning. It was big out here. Yeah, I can grow a beard.
Is there any young wrestler, other than of course your nephews, that you could see becoming the next Hulk Hogan or John Cena in the future? Because it seems like that's going to be a problem. Fine, because the Rock's pretty much retired from pro wrestling.
I just don't see anybody that stands out right now. But I mean, that can change in a week. It's just if somebody hits a promo right or something. But I just don't see anybody busting out right now. And they've got so much young talent from NXT coming in that they keep bringing in young, inexperienced talent, and I don't know. It seems kind of haphazard to me the way they do things up there. But they're also dealing with a lot of injuries in their top talent, so they've got to deal with that too. So I mean, it makes it more like UFC, because that they have constant turnover. So it just might be the new wave of wrestling, just a constant turnover of top talent. I don't know.
Do you think they're giving tryouts a lot to CrossFit athletes and bodybuilders and ex-football players who have been released by NFL and some amateur wrestlers? Do you think that's a good thing, to be looking more outside of independent wrestlers and getting people that might not have thought of wrestling otherwise?
Well, I mean, what they're doing is they're trying to do the numbers. They're trying to run as many people through their school as they can to try to find somebody that's going to be the next breakout star. And you won't know until you find them. So they just have to keep turning over every stone.
And a lot of people have varying opinions on Roman Reigns. What did you think of him as a wrestler?
Well, I thought that they put him in his position when he was a little green and not ready for it. But he's coming to it. He's earning it. He's going to be all right. It's just taking him a while, and it takes some guys longer to get over and to be a fan favorite. And you still hear boos in the crowd for him, but he'll change. He'll be all right.
And he had a pretty good match against The Undertaker at WrestleMania last year. Did you ever work with The Undertaker in your time?
I'm trying to think of if I did. The only time I think I worked with Taker was in an enhancement match on a TV, and I put him over with his tombstone pile driver. That was it.
That would have been during your time as the Stalker, maybe?
Yeah, probably towards the end, where I was with Cornette and the NWA.
Have you followed TNA at all, that wrestling company?
I did some, but then it just got so erratic that it was hard to follow. so I just quit watching it.
Yeah, a company like that now they've dropped the TNA name and they're just calling themselves Impact Wrestling, which was the name of the TNA TV show. Do you think it's just going to keep going on forever with various owners, or is there something they could do to finally actually get out of their slump?
Well, I don't know. I would like to think that somebody would come along, but it's probably going to be Vince, to buy them just for their tape library, just to have access to that, and it'll be done. And that'll probably happen in the next year or two. Vince is already going back out into the XFL. I saw this morning when I was on the plane. So if he's expanding into that, he's looking for other ways. And the TNA would help his 24-hour wrestling channel.
What do you think about Vince going back into the football game?
Well, I mean, like I said before, it's his money and he's the boss. But I'm sure it has to do with, the way the players have been, not standing for the anthem and stuff like that, which, he would make sure that kind of stuff didn't happen. But I don't see it being successful. I mean, not any more successful than indoor football, league football. So it's just, I don't see it being a moneymaker for him.
And what was your favorite opponent? Who was your favorite opponent in your career?
Wrestling wise, I mean, I always enjoyed wrestling with Flair, but I mean, I also had really good chemistry with Dustin. But as far as fun in the ring and having fun and also having good matches and telling a good story was with Dick Murdoch. There was just nobody like him, and it's just, when he wanted to have a serious match, he could have a serious as a heart attack match, but it was hard to get him out of his goofy moods, and I was one of the people that could do that. So I always had good matches with him.
And what would have been your favorite company to work for?
One that keeps their promises and pays you. The imaginary company.
And favorite tag team partner?
Oh, I guess Rotundo and I are such good buddies, and we're good fishing buddies now. So, he was my favorite tag team partner.
And is there any message that you'd like to say to your fans that are going to sit through this interview?
Well, I mean, I'm back out on the road making some of these appearances and coming to some of these towns, so maybe I'll get to meet you soon.
And I'm going to assume you don't, but do you have Twitter or any type of social media where people could find out what you're up to or where you're appearing?
I don't really have anything. I got a couple of Facebook pages, but fans run them and I don't do them.
Okay. And if any promoters want to book you for an autograph appearance or something, is there an email address or who would they get in contact with?
You can get me at my Facebook. It's Barry B.W. Windham at Facebook.
Thank you very much for doing this interview with us, and we wish you continued success.
All right. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.